In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
It is time to talk to Bucky Brooks from the NFL Network. Also writes for NFL.com as an analyst. You can see Bucky this Friday, 1 o'clock on NFL.com live on the Mock Draft Weekly, along with Daniel Jeremiah, Akbar Bajabiamila, and Matt Money Smith. You can also see him on the NFL Network, NFL.com. Complete coverage of the 2013 NFL Draft throughout the week. And, of course, that starts next Monday, and the draft begins on Wednesday. And Bucky Brooks joins us right now. Hey, Bucky, great to talk to you. It's Vince Ferrara and Jesse Smithey. How you doing this morning, Bucky?
Man, I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're good. I know this is really a heavy time for you, so really appreciate your time and coming on with us. And unlike maybe the last couple years, Tennessee this year has a lot of guys that are a factor in the first round and in the first couple days of the NFL draft. And I want to go through some of those guys with you one by one and start with Cordero Patterson. What's your thoughts on Cordero Patterson? Where is he amongst the wide receivers that you have? And just give us some things you like and maybe our criticisms of Cordero Patterson.
You know, here's the thing. Cordero Patterson is an outstanding playmaker. I think he may be the best player with the ball in his hands at the position. What he was able to do his 1 year at Tennessee, he showed a remarkable array of skills in terms of being an exceptional runner after the catch. I think when you think about adding Cordero to your roster, you're getting an explosive player who's going to help you put the ball in the paint and score more points. The biggest issue with Cordero is he only has 1 year of major college experience working under him. JUCO transfer. So because of that, he's not necessarily a refined route runner. You wonder how long will it take him to grasp a pro playbook and really put it into play on the field. But if you can work through those issues, I mean, you're talking about a standout playmaker that changes what you can do offensively.
Bucky, one of the things that's concerned me so much about Cordero Patterson is the way that he makes his cuts, the way that he plants his leg and then reverses field or to whichever direction he wants to go. Has that been brought up in discussions at all, or it just seems like somewhere down the line he could be injury prone because of the way he cuts?
I think more importantly, before you get to that part about what he does after he catches it, you do wonder about his ability to run refined routes because he's not polished in that regard. But sometimes a guy is so explosive as an athlete that you're willing to take a chance on his athleticism and hope that your receiver coach or the offensive coordinator can get with him and really show him how to play the game at a high level. Because of that, his value as an athlete, as a playmaker, is going to outweigh some of those little dings and things that we can pick apart in this game.
Bucky Brooks from the NFL Network, NFL.com, joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page, talking about former Vols in the NFL Draft. Last thing on CP, you have him at number 17 in your latest mock draft to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Besides the Steelers, who are some other teams in the range where he could go that you think are candidates to potentially draft Patterson?
I mean, I think anytime you're sitting there, 16 with St. Louis, Pittsburgh at 17, the Rams coming in at 22, I think it could be a fit for the Minnesota Vikings at 23, even the Houston Texans. It really depends on what the offensive coordinator has a vision for his offense and what kind of playmakers. He is a standout Mike Wallace type, stretch the field, vertical threat that I think every team wants. It just depends on what you already have in place, whether you want to go for Cordero Patterson or somebody else in the draft.
Talk about Justin Hunter, and he's one of the guys that you don't have in the first round, sort of in the next range of players to watch outside of the first round. Tell us a little bit what your opinions are of Justin Hunter.
You know, extremely talented, like a naturally gifted receiver, could arguably be the most talented one in the draft. But the problem is the level of inconsistency in terms of catching the ball prevents me from really getting excited about him. But I do know teams that have him in that first-round range who think that he's going to be an outstanding playmaker. He's kind of a consummate split-end receiver, meaning he can run all the routes. He can do all the things that you want to see athletically. His biggest thing has been his focus and concentration on pulling the ball in. If he can resolve that matter, then he could be a Pro Bowl player at the next level.
It seemed like for a while that the Wonderlic test ranked right up there with the 40-yard dash as far as components in these pre-draft analytical things concerning players. And it's come out that I think Tavon Austin made like a 7 on his. Cordero Patterson and Justin Hunter were in the low teens. Is that really a major factor nowadays?
It's not a major factor depending upon the position that you play. If you're thinking about quarterbacks need to be in the high 20 to 30 range. When we go to skill position players, guys are not necessarily concerned if they score in the low teens. Anytime you have someone in a single digit, it is a concern, but the one to look is not necessarily an intelligence test. It's more to tip you off if there's a problem with their learning, if there's a problem with reading comprehension. Will you have to introduce different methods to teach them the playbook and teach them the concepts that you want to use for your football team?
Visiting with Bucky Brooks, analyst for the NFL Network, NFL.com, talking about the former Vols potentially for the NFL draft. All right, let's talk about Tyler Bray. What's your opinion of what you've seen to this point in Tyler Bray from Tennessee?
Outstanding physical athlete in terms of being able to throw the ball. He is a gifted pocket passer, great arm strength, has the ability to make all the throws that you want to see in a pro offense. Tyler's biggest thing is his game is unrefined. He kind of plays it with a gunslinger mentality, doesn't really use solid mechanics and fundamentals all the time. And then when you add in the fact that immaturity issues stemming from his incidents off the field, it just makes you concerned, can he be a franchise quarterback? I think teams will be intrigued by his physical ability, and someone will take a chance on him maybe in that 3rd to 4th round range, hoping that they have a veteran in place that they can develop Tyler, much like the New England Patriots did with Ryan Mallett a few years ago, and maybe in 2 to 3 years you have a guy that has starting capability in the National Football League.
Tyler is supposed to be on John Gruden's quarterback camp tomorrow night. Do you watch those, and do you let those shows change your perception of players?
I think they do provide some kind of insight because you get an opportunity to see what they're like one-on-one with a coach. You get an opportunity to see them on the board explaining what they did X and O's wise for their team. Now, we also understand with TV, everything is edited and the production changes some of it. But I think you can get some of those things from the one-on-one sit-downs with Coach Wood.
Visiting with Bucky Brooks, analyst for the NFL Network, NFL.com, talking about some of the former Vols in the NFL draft and the upcoming NFL draft. Bucky, real quick, before we get back to a couple more Tennessee guys I want to ask you about, you have Eric Fisher, number 1 of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a little bit different than what we've seen from a lot of the mock drafts that have Luke Joeckel at number 1. Why Eric Fisher, a guy that was recruited and coached by current Tennessee coach Butch Jones?
I think Luke Joeckel and Eric Fisher are similarly rated. I think the big thing is you're looking at the athleticism. Eric Fisher is a standout athlete, maybe one of the best at the position. And so when you think about that athleticism playing in today's game against these explosive pass rushers like Jason Pierre-Paul and the like, Alden Smith, you want to have someone at that left tackle position that has the capability of being able to match up and mirror those guys. I think Eric Fisher's athleticism gives him just a notch above what Luke Joeckel could be in the National Football League.
We're a big Titans area here in East Tennessee. We had a listener that wanted us to ask you what you think the Tennessee Titans will do in this year's draft, some of the positions they'll address and what they might do at number 10.
Well, I think early and often they still want to continue to address that offensive line. They signed Andy Levitre, who's one of the best offensive guards on the open market, but they still could use another guard to go inside. When they were at their best and when CJ2K was running for 2,000 yards, it was because that interior trio dominated. Look for them to add an offensive guard high in the draft. I also think they will go to the other side of the line of scrimmage and work on that defensive line, defensive tackle, defensive end, trying to find somebody that can give them a presence like Albert Haynesworth did when they were playing very, very good defense down in Nashville.
Bucky Brooks from the NFL Network, NFL.com analyst leading up to the draft, which starts a week from tonight for the first round, and then second and third round on Friday, and then the final rounds on Saturday. Bucky, I want to go back to Tyler Bray for a second. You mentioned that some teams will be intrigued and will take a chance on him, maybe with a veteran there to help him along. Give us a couple teams that you think might be good candidates to fill that scenario potentially for Tyler Bray.
Well, it really depends, because you start thinking about fit and scheme. I think he's a deep ball thrower. So if you feel good about what Carson Palmer is in Arizona and Bruce Arians is a noted quarterback developer, maybe he takes a chance on him. If you think about other teams that have veterans in place but still have quarterback situations that are unresolved, I think any of those teams that have someone in place where you're looking for a young developmental quarterback, he could be a guy that you certainly would take an interest in.
Bucky, a lot of the NFL analysts have Manti Te'o still in the first round, right around number 23, going to Minnesota. Why is that?
Well, I mean, I think he's a very, very good player. I think if you look at what he did, his body work throughout his career at Notre Dame, you would say that he's going to be a productive player at the next level. A lot of people still have that bad image of how he played and performed at the BCS National Championship game against Alabama, and that has detracted from a solid season where he earned all the accolades. But it's important for Manti to go to a situation where they have two established defensive tackles that can keep blockers off of him so he can run and chase. But I think he's an exceptional player. He has great instinct. He's a natural leader. He will be fine at the next level. It's just a matter of putting him in the right situation where he can thrive.
Bucky, won't keep you too much longer. I just want to hit you with a couple more former Vols and get your quick thoughts on them. And we'll start out with Derrick Rogers, the one-time Tennessee wide receiver.
Explosive playmaker, kind of building the mold of a Dez Bryant. Big, physical, makes things happen with the ball in his hands. Maybe more polished in terms of a player than Cordell and even Justin Hunter. But his off-the-field issues will prevent teams from taking him high. I think third round is about the right range for him, but I think he could surpass those other guys, those other volunteers in terms of what he is as a player at the next level.
Another one-time Vol, Montori Hughes. What's his draft range, and what do you think of him?
You know, Montori Hughes is an interesting player. I think he has the size that you look for. He has the strength that you look for. The big thing is the off-the-field concern. Do you feel comfortable bringing him in the locker room? I think he's someone that mid-round range is probably his sweet spot. I think fourth, fifth round is probably where he comes off the board in the shoot gap. What
about Dallas Thomas, who with that torn labrum wasn't able to do much, hasn't been able to do stuff in the off season? What's his draft his round range?
You know, Dallas Thomas was someone who was going to be in the conversation maybe in round 2 consideration before the injury. I still think somewhere in that second or third round, you can't find enough big physical offensive linemen. The fact that he may have the versatility to kick inside will help him. I think he may be a guard at the next level. Either way, I would expect him to go sometime on D2.
Excuse me, Bucky. What about Michael Rivera and any other guys from Tennessee you think have a chance to be drafted?
You know, I think we kind of covered the guys that are probably draftable. I think those other guys, maybe Michael Rivera, may have an outside shot later in the draft. But Tennessee, obviously, when we rattle off 5 or 6 names with guys being highly rated, like obviously it's an outstanding program with a lot of talent. Scouts recognize that talent. That's why you see some of the volunteers come off the board.
And unfortunately, you mentioned off-the-field issues a few too many times. Tennessee knows.
You know, it's interesting because you do wonder if they were able to get all those guys straight, particularly just the offensive talent alone. That's a team that underachieved last year because the guys that we see going to the draft are all top playmakers. You would think that they would have had more success on the field, which may be why Jake Dooley's no longer there.
Yeah. Bucky Brooks, outstanding analyst for the NFL Network, NFL.com. You can see him this Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the NFL, on NFL.com. A live mock draft weekly along with Daniel Jeremiah, Akbar Baja-Biamila, Matt Money Smith, and then also his coverage on draft week next week starting on Monday. Bucky, really enjoy your work. Really respect you. Appreciate your time today. Have a super rest of the week.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks. That's Bucky Brooks joining us from NFL Network, NFL.com.